and people alleging that he was involved with Tupac's death?
Absolutely.
Sometimes you get away with stuff, and you, like when you hear the song on the I put $1 billion on your head. Real kid, like you know, like and nobody want to kill nobody, and really don't let nobody know.
I mean, it's all f***ed up. It was a setup. It was a plot to my brother. I feel f***ed up.
This feels like a real shift, the kind that makes people stop scrolling and actually pay attention. According to 50 Cent, the FBI wasn't just monitoring Sean Diddy Combs for what's unfolding right now. They were already watching him quietly, patiently, because of something far darker hanging over his past. A shadow that keeps dragging investigators back to the same unresolved questions, the murders of Tupac Shakur and the notorious B.I.G. In this breakdown, the focus turns to claims coming from people who were once deep inside Diddy's world, not outsiders, not internet commentators, people like Kirk Burroughs and Gene Deal. Even more unsettling, members of Tupac's own family, including his brother Mo Primé and his cousin Jamala, have spoken openly about what they witnessed and what they believe. These are people who lived inside the chaos, not people speculating from a distance. Tupac and Biggie were once close.
Claims that there is this ongoing conversation. It happens on 3 different occasions. But most specifically when he and Puffy are at this place called Greenblatt's Deli on Sunset. And they're there, things have spiraled out of control. Puffy's really concerned about, you know, the welfare of his safety. And he tells Keefe D, man, I just need you to take care of this situation with Suge and Tupac. It's out of control. You know, Tupac's on vinyl talking about kill kids when they grow up, and you know, it's just it's just become this really serious conflict. And he says, I just need you to take care of him. And Keefe D's like, that's no problem. You know, that's what we do. And so an agreement was made, according to Keefe D, for an amount of money, and they kind of just let it go at that point in time. But of course, Keefe D knows in the back of his mind this is what Puffy wants done. And they all end up out in Las Vegas. Suge's out there.
Well, before you say that, there's a couple things I want to talk about.
Sure.
Vegas. So when you say that Keefe got offered an amount of money, according to him, was there a dollar amount?
Yeah, so there was a dollar amount. But I think that, you know, the nuances of this conversation are that, like, man, I'll give you $1 million, whatever it takes. You know, it's like exaggerated speech. But of course, when we interview Keefe D, he's like, yeah, that's what the agreement amount was, $1 million.
So according to Keefe, he's claiming that Puffy offered him $1 million to Suge or Tupac?
Both
or
of them.
Both.
Yeah, both their names came up. And according to Keefe D, he says, you know, Tupac's put himself on the list by all the shit that he was doing.
Two forces rising at the same time, reshaping hip-hop, pushing culture into new territory. Then, within just 6 months of each other, both were gone, killed at the absolute peak of their influence. For years, the story froze there, suspended in mystery. But now, people who were actually in the rooms, on the streets, and behind the scenes are stepping forward. Tupac's cousin, former Bad Boy artist Mark Curry, former LAPD detective Greg Kading, even a former Crips member. Different paths, different loyalties, yet their stories keep intersecting in ways that are hard to ignore. The central claim is disturbing. Tupac's death wasn't random, it was planned. And according to Kirk Burroughs, one of the co-founders of Bad Boy Entertainment, the trail leads directly back to Diddy himself. For decades, no one was charged. The case slowly turned into legend. Documentaries piled up, think pieces multiplied, endless debates went in circles without resolution. But that silence may finally be cracking. The first real domino fell in 2023 when Dwayne Keefe D. Davis was indicted in connection with Tupac's murder. And when Greg Kading reflected on the case, he said something that sent a chill through anyone familiar with the history. In his words, it now comes down to Keefe D. and Puffy, the last two men still standing. During recorded sessions with investigators, Keefe D made explosive allegations. He claimed that about a year before Tupac was killed, Diddy stood in a room full of Crips and openly spoke about wanting both Tupac and Suge Knight dead. According to Keefe D, it wasn't just reckless talk. He says Diddy later offered $1 million to make it happen. Keith D describes this as an ongoing conversation, not a single heated moment. He says it came up more than once, but one encounter stood out above the rest. According to him, he and Diddy were together at Greenblatt's Deli on Sunset Boulevard when things spiraled. He claims Diddy was panicked, genuinely fearful for his own safety, and convinced the situation had gone too far. He allegedly told Keith D that Suge and Tupac needed to be handled, pointing to Tupac's music and public threats as proof that the conflict had escalated into something serious. Keith D says he responded calmly, telling Diddy that this kind of problem was what they dealt with. From his account, an understanding was reached. Money was mentioned, no paperwork, no contracts, nothing official, just a mutual understanding. Even after that conversation ended, Keith D claims he knew exactly what Diddy wanted. And eventually everyone ended up in Las Vegas, with Suge there as well. When investigators later asked if there was a specific amount attached to the offer, the answer became less clear. The language, according to those involved, sounded exaggerated. "I'll give you $1 million, whatever it takes." But when pressed directly, Keith D was firm. He says the agreed amount was $1 million, and according to him, it wasn't just Tupac who was named. Suge Knight was included too. Keith D even claimed Tupac put himself on that list through his actions and public attacks. The allegations didn't stop with conversations. Keith D also spoke about a gun hidden in a vehicle connected to Eric Von Zip Martin, a man described as influential, well-connected, and closely tied to Diddy. Tupac's brother has been blunt about this. If Von Zip supplied that weapon, then both he and Diddy should have been investigated from the very beginning. When asked about the long-standing rumor that Diddy wrote $1 million check to Von Zip to pass along to Keith D, Tupac's brother didn't hesitate. He said he was familiar with the story and familiar with the man. People around Tupac knew Von Zip, and the idea that someone he had personally met could be connected to a setup against his brother still weighs heavily on him. To him, it feels like a coordinated hit, a deliberate move, and even without claiming absolute proof, he made one thing clear: there's no love there. What makes this harder to dismiss is how close Von Zip was allegedly to both Diddy and Keith D. The fact that his role was never seriously examined raises uncomfortable questions. That's where Kirk Burroughs' journals suddenly take on new importance. Just days before Tupac was killed, Burroughs wrote that Diddy asked him to rent cars and drive from New York to Las Vegas for the fight. The request stood out immediately. Flying would have been faster, easier, and far more logical. Still, Burroughs followed instructions and documented everything. Routes, costs, dates, every detail. Those handwritten notes later appeared in a documentary, and sources suggest the FBI may now be treating them as real evidence in their investigation into Diddy. Gene Deal, who handled security for Bad Boy, later explained how exposed everything became. According to him, security decisions were always tied to budgets. Once a budget ended, protection ended with it. The security coverage for Biggie in Los Angeles officially wrapped on Friday night. A new plan was supposed to start moving him safely to London with full security and trusted people around him. That plan never materialized. The new budget was never approved. So that Saturday night, Biggie was out without protection in a city already charged with tension. Gene says that decision put everyone in the worst possible position. Biggie was their biggest star, surrounded by enemies on the West Coast, in a place they had been warned not to be, and yet they stayed. Just after midnight, Biggie left the party. While stopped at a red light, another car pulled up beside him. Shots were fired. He was hit multiple times and later pronounced dead. He was only 24 years old. After Biggie's death, strange patterns began to surface. Reports emerged that he had been planning to leave Bad Boy Records. Legal disputes over his publishing rights followed. Instead of Biggie being honored, Diddy appeared on the covers of major magazines. Just 2 months later, he released I'll Be Missing You, which became a global hit. His debut album followed and went multi-platinum. Years later, Diddy would even admit that Biggie's death increased his own fame, an admission that raised eyebrows. And the pattern didn't end there. Over time, several people closely connected to Diddy reportedly became sick, went silent, or passed away under questionable circumstances. Lawsuits surfaced, allegations appeared, stories briefly broke into the open, then quietly disappeared. Now Gene Deal says the upcoming Keefe D trial could force everything into the open, especially because of the defense strategy being used. According to Gene, Keefe D's position is simple. He's pointing straight back at Puff. There's no physical evidence directly tying Keefe D to Tupac's death, only circumstantial claims and secondhand testimony. That's why his legal team pushed for a judge-only trial, because in that setting, emotion doesn't matter, only proof does. So the questions just keep piling up. What actually ties Keefe D to Puff? And beyond that, what really connects Keefe D to Tupac's murder in a way that holds up under real scrutiny? More importantly, how would anyone ever prove that either of them played a direct role? In a courtroom, speculation doesn't matter. Somebody would have to sit on the stand and say, I saw it with my own eyes, I heard the conversation, he told me himself. And even then, the court would still have to believe them. But that leads straight into another problem. Can you believe Keefe D, a man who has told multiple versions of this story over the years? That's something prosecutors can't ignore. If he's telling one version now, what happens to all the versions he told before? Every prior statement suddenly becomes evidence. Every inconsistency gets dragged back into the spotlight. Investigators don't just focus on what's being said today, they line it up against everything that's ever been said before and look for cracks. Then the spotlight shifts to the money. If this was really a setup, where did the money go? Did anyone actually receive it? Who got paid? Who wrote the check? Who moved the funds? And when did that happen? Where did it originate and where did it end up? Gene Deal keeps hammering this point home. There is no physical evidence placing Keefe D at the scene pulling the trigger. What exists instead are statements, secondhand accounts, and claims about conversations that allegedly happened behind closed doors. That's exactly why Keefe D's legal team pushed for a judge-only trial rather than a jury. A judge isn't swayed by emotion, shock, or dramatic storytelling. A judge wants proof, paper trails, financial records, clear, direct links that can't be explained away. So the question becomes unavoidable. What actually ties Keefe D directly to Tupac's murder? One major factor is Keefe D himself. He has admitted involvement in different ways over the years. Back in 1997, an informant told investigators that Puff had allegedly hired the Southside Crips to target both Suge Knight and Tupac. According to that account, the man who was jumped at the MGM Grand was part of the same group involved in the shooting. They were originally supposed to wait and carry it out later at Suge's Vegas nightclub, but instead made the decision to act immediately. What makes this especially disturbing is that Keefe D repeated essentially the same story again nearly a decade later. Very few people know what happened right after Tupac was shot. As the white Cadillac sped away from the scene, one of the death row entourage, Alton McDonald, also known as Buntry, chased after it. A second exchange of gunfire reportedly happened between the two vehicles. McDonald's car was hit. According to Las Vegas Metro files, there's documentation indicating his vehicle had been struck by a bullet that same night. There's also the claim that, in hindsight, one unexpected twist may have protected Puff. According to what's been said, Eric Von Zip Martin allegedly kept the money for himself. If that hadn't happened, the argument goes, the case might have turned into a clear-cut murder-for-hire situation. Even federal investigators have reportedly acknowledged that Von Zip keeping the money broke the direct chain, and people close to the situation say Von Zip wasn't exactly known for loyalty. Everybody crosses somebody eventually. Friends, associates, even lawyers. Sometimes you're the last one to realize that Gene Deal says the only way this case truly comes together is if someone steps forward and says, I heard the conversation, I saw the exchange, I know exactly where the money came from. But even that isn't easy. Keefe D has changed details over time, and every change forces prosecutors to explain why this version should be believed over the others. Gene believes that if investigators can prove money moved from Diddy through intermediaries and ended up connected to Keefe D, and if the people involved back that up, then everything changes overnight. Gene has also long insisted that Diddy and Tupac were not on good terms, something Tupac's cousin Jamala has recently supported. She remembers the Vegas trip clearly. After Tupac got into a fight with Orlando Anderson, he came back to the hotel completely wired. At first, she thought Vegas was going to be about fun, about turning up, but once they arrived, Tupac's energy shifted. He told her and Gaddafi Jones to stay in the room. He was protective, almost strict, and at the time, it rubbed her the wrong way. Then Tupac came back talking about knocking someone out. In that moment, she didn't even know who it was. Later, she learned it was Orlando Anderson. She remembers Tupac changing clothes, switching from an orange button-up to a green basketball-style jersey, moving fast, looking for the outlaws, and still telling her and Gaddafi to stay inside. Even when she ignored him and stepped out, she ran into Suge Knight in the elevator. When she mentioned what Tupac had done, Suge immediately silenced her with a finger to his lips. Looking back, she believes that may have been a silent warning that danger was close. She also remembers Tupac that night as intense, loud, full of adrenaline, but still trying to protect the people around him. Gaddafi, his fiancée at the time, stayed calm and grounded, not feeding into the chaos. Jamala confirmed something many people doubted for years. Tupac truly planned to marry Gaddafi. He talked about homes, family, business, and a future beyond death row. Tupac wanted out. One moment from just a week or two before Vegas still haunts her, Tupac was on the phone in the kitchen, screaming about his masters, completely losing control, veins popping out of his neck, sweat pouring down his head. She had never seen him like that. The rage terrified her, not because of him, but because of what it might attract. She genuinely thought violence was coming to the house. They were New Yorkers surrounded by a West Coast gang culture they didn't fully understand, and for the first time, she felt real fear. When asked if she'd ever seen Tupac that angry before, her answer was immediate. No, never. And that's what made it so frightening. Was that anger because Tupac planned to leave death row and build something new, possibly even rivaling Bad Boy? It's a theory, and one his own cousin seems to believe. These aren't random accusations or people chasing clout. These are accounts from people who were actually there. Some of the harshest words come from one of Diddy's former artists, Freddie P. When asked if he believes Diddy had something to do with Tupac's death, his answer was blunt. Anyone with common sense already knows. He compares it to old mob cases where everyone knew who was responsible, even if it couldn't be proven in court. In the streets, false narratives don't survive. Freddie says people tried for years to blame Suge Knight, but those connected to the streets knew better. Suge loved Tupac like a brother, and everything that happened afterward only reinforced that belief. Freddie points out how many lives were impacted after Tupac's death, while Puff continued moving forward untouched. He brings up lyrics and old audio moments people ignored for years, saying the truth is sometimes hidden in plain sight if you actually listen. According to long-standing accusations, money played a role. Even quiet ad-libs have been interpreted as subtle admissions. And then there's his final warning: in the streets, souls don't rest. What's done doesn't just disappear. Eventually, there's always a knock at the door. With Keefe D's trial set for August, more eyes are watching this case than ever before. If you want to stay locked in as new details surface, make sure you like the video, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.